Hi, my name is Aaron, and I want to share with you some of the behind the scenes on how I was able to bring the ViewMaster inspired gallery to my website. So this is an example of where we landed. Bringing a physical interaction into the digital world presented challenges that I thought were really, really cool. So I'm going to share quickly a bit about the research that went into this. So one of the first things that I did was kind of go into YouTube and try to find as many videos on how things worked and what the mechanics were with the original ViewMaster cameras. I was really curious about how this was built. So I went through many different wormholes of videos that showed the ViewMaster at work, looked at artifacts of how the reels that were used for this projection device, how did they come packaged? And you can see here in this video that it changes pretty nicely, has a very cool effect. And along the way, I learned about Charles Harrison, who is an industrial designer who worked at the Sears Corporation, and he wrote a book called A Life's Design, and he's a really interesting guy. And I think it's worth taking a closer look at his legacy and his work at Sears. And he essentially is responsible for making the ViewMaster the toy, the popular toy that it eventually became. Along the research phase, I was very curious about the elements on the actual physical camera that gave it its distinct look. So once I was done with that research, I started to explore what this effect could look like. And these are very rough but very important animation explorations. I went through many of these using CodePen to essentially try to replicate what made that change in the frame so special. I took a few months off of this project and I guess had it in the back of my mind and came back to it many months later. And this is the first sort of exploration, once again, of what this digital interface and the interaction for the ViewMaster, how it could work. But I wasn't quite satisfied, even when I tried to add a bit of effects to the images themselves. It seemed to not quite get to the core of what made the ViewMaster, or what makes the ViewMaster such a compelling and fun interaction. And I continued to iterate on this, thinking, well, how can I improve it? And then I got to the design phase, which really was, let's build it from scratch to work in the same mechanical fashion that the actual device works. So I took all of the learnings that I picked up in the research portion of this project, and I started to build it out. And I continued forward, and the disc was working and it looked good. I had the fixed aperture, but there was still a lot of refining that needed to be done. And so I continued forward, and I made a lot of progress here, because we were finally able to see what a circular disc, how it could carry the slides over. And so we made lots of progress. In this example, I'm showing you how the fixed aperture is now taking each image and showing them. But now it's time to kind of plug in the actual images and see how it works. And so this was one of the first examples of the ViewMaster gallery with images inside. And now we're starting to get a bit warmer. Now we're starting to really capture that mechanical rotation that makes the ViewMaster so cool. And this is another example, but there were still some bugs and some issues that made some of the frames show an artifact when you sort of toggled it. And I worked continuously to try to refine that change and that transition, and inevitably ran against some of these visual bugs that created sort of this glitch effect, which was cool, but not exactly what we wanted. So in this next iteration, we're starting to get a bit closer to what we're trying to do. And we went through many different iterations here, and you'll see just kind of how we're approaching this shutter effect and how it's coming together very slowly. So we went through many different effects, many different versions, and you can see some of the arrow callouts where the artifacts of the shutter are being left, and we're having to I'm having to fix that. So once I had arrived at the design that I was really happy with, it took about maybe 70 or so iterations. I didn't display them all in the presentation, it would be too long. But we arrived to something that looked a bit like this. And this was good. This is much better than what we had in the very beginning, but it still wasn't there, and we needed to continue to refine. But the mechanics and the architecture had been built, and had been built in such a solid way that now we could really just focus on the timing and making the animation just so much better. And so this is the following design, and this now is much closer to what the vision, what I had in mind. And now you can also see the label viewer at the very bottom there that is showing you what slide you're on, which is a very key part of the ViewMaster experience. The vignette that I had created around the image was very distracting and not really serving our purpose. And additionally, the edge glow around the frame wasn't really making the curvature that I wanted, so I had to improve that. And I went through many different iterations trying to figure out how do we make the label viewer at the bottom stay in sync mechanically with the image that it's showing. So I also put the label viewer in a circular disc as well, and began to make more progress here. So you can see it a bit better. However, there's still some visual details that need to be refined, like the text at the bottom is looking like it's clipped, and there is a gray sort of border there that needs to be taken care of. And on mobile, it's looking like it's cropped, and it should not be cropped. It should be the way this red rounded square indicates. And so moving onward, there was a lot of little refinements that were required to get to the final result, which was this. And I'm really excited and really happy with the way it turned out. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video, and I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a good one.